Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Worthy, Worth It, and Priceless. And today, I kind of wanted just to give you a word, basically from the Bible, and it is based off of 1 Samuel 15. I won't be reading the full chapter or probably even any of it. So if you can read it yourself. But I wanted to go over the story and basically just give you a word from what I read. And so, basically, I guess this podcast episode will be called Partial Disobedience is Still Disobedience. So, in this chapter, God told Samuel to tell Saul, basically, to destroy the Amalekites nation, the Amalekite nation. Basically, told him to take out the men, women, children, babies, cattle, sheep, the goats, the camels, and the donkeys. Okay, just take them all out, even livestock, everything. Just take it all out. And so instead of um, Saul doing that, right? So if you get down to, um, I want to say, basically, by the time you get down to verse 8, he he captured the king, but he basically destroyed everyone else. He spared the king's life, and he kept the best sheep and goats, the cattle, the fat calves, and the lambs. Basically everything that appealed to them. They destroyed only what was worthless and poor quality. And so then, not only that, right? And so God said to Samuel in verse 10, I am sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and has refused to obey my command. And so early the next morning, um, Samuel went to go find Saul. Someone told him that Saul went to the town of Carmel to set up a monument to himself. Like, are you kidding me? Now, this is like a place where we pause. I probably should have paused even before that. But either way, this is the thing. God told you or gave you specific instructions. Take them out. Take everything out. And you spare the king and you spare, you know, some of the livestock, whatever was good. But then you go further and I'll just, basically tell you everything. So basically, if you read even further, he's sitting up there. He's then when it's all said and done, you didn't do what God told you to do. But now you're about to try to set up a monument to yourself. And then he tells Saul that he was going to sacrifice the cattle that he didn't kill. So you're basically going to give God the things that you disobeyed him with as a gift, as a sacrifice. That's like somebody stealing something from you and then waiting until your birthday to give it back to you as if it's a gift. Like God told him to get rid of it. I told you to destroy it. You didn't even do what I asked you to do, but now you want to give it to me as a sacrifice. And so you're putting it back into my face that you didn't do what I asked you to do. And then you don't even kill the king. And then he used the excuse that if you go up to or go to verse 24. Then Saul admitted to Samuel, "Yes, I have sinned. I have disobeyed your instructions and the Lord's command, for I was afraid of the people and did what they demanded." Excuse me, sir. What do you mean? You are the king. God gave you instruction. You disobeyed what God said to follow man and do what man told you to do. And then on top of that, once again, you're going to give God back what he told you to kill. The audacity. But uh if you read the Bible kind of like I do, but sometimes I internalize it too and I look at myself. And so with that, I was looking obviously at myself and I'm like, okay, so even though I can point the finger at Saul, you know what I mean? But I have to also look at me. What were things that God told me to do that I didn't do? Okay. You want to know how this all came about? I will tell you, of course. So I was so earlier I was going to read this stuff. I forgot what I was thinking about or whatever, but I was like, you know what, as soon as I get done doing this, I'm going to read the Bible. So instead of me reading the Bible, I actually came into my craft room and I started doing paper crafts. If you don't follow me on social media, I've gotten into, I have so much card stock. So I started, doing shadow boxes and doing all this other stuff. It's busy work, but it is what it is. So anyway, I came into my craft room instead of reading the Bible. And so as I was finishing up the craft that I was making, I sensed it. I was avoiding what I should have been doing. I should have been studying. I should have been reading the Bible. But at the end of the day, I did what I wanted to do. And that's how a lot of us are. We know the call that God has placed on our life. We know that we should be doing A, B, and C. Whatever the call is, whatever your call is, you know you're supposed to do it. But we do what makes us comfortable. And sometimes we avoid doing what God has called us to do because we kind of want to please man. And so I'll give you obviously another example from me. I knew that there was a call on my life. Probably as early, I knew very young. I didn't know what it meant, but I remember um when I was younger, I think I was 5, I'm not sure, but I remember I was in the single digits and I was in my playroom when I lived in Bainbridge, Georgia, and I called my brother in the room. I was like, "Big man." And I was like, "Big man, I'm great. I feel like I'm gonna be great. I don't know at what, but I feel like I'm gonna do something great." And he just looked at me like, okay. He was a little younger than me, so he didn't know what I was talking about. And I barely even knew what I was talking about. But I was like, I know I'm gonna be great. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I just feel it, big man. I feel like I'm gonna be great. And so I knew at a young age. And then I remember when I was 16 years old, I remember my grandmother saying something, or I felt it on me. Like I felt the desire to go to church and I was paying tithes and all this other stuff. And I knew that I needed to change or you know what I mean, I needed to fully surrender or however it went. But I think I had this conversation here before, but seeing I wanted to still live my life, whatever that meant, right? Where I went to school, they used to call them sanctified girls, and they always wore skirts. And I thought if I followed Christ, I would have to wear skirts all the time. And so I'm like, I'm young. I still want to do stuff. I kind of want to cuss. I want to, you know what I mean? I had no world experience at all. So at the end of the day, I was like, I kind of avoided it as much as I could. But that took me down the wrong path. Not like super wrong, but it was like I fell in love with life and all this other stuff and, tried things I wasn't supposed to try and nothing ever worked out. Thank God. I even tried cussing, cussing and stuff like that. People like, you don't even look right cussing. You know what I mean? I tried to drink. That never worked out at all. First hangover, that was done. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, So I tried things, but it just never suited me or anything like that. So, yeah. But the thing about it is because there was a call on my life and God spared me even though I was trying to live on the wild side. And basically, when the wild side was done with me, like just spit me out or, as if I was nothing. And by the grace of God, God was still there. And so that is how it is for a lot of us. We want to do what people, I mean, no one wants to be on the other side of rejection for the most part. But a lot of times following Christ, that's where you might end up being. You might be in the silence. You know what I mean? While God is taking care of you and getting you to see, different sides of life and shedding the old you and old mindsets and stuff like that. And you know, there's a journey. There's a process to it. As your friends are going out to the club and you're like, no, I have to stay home and study, or I need to spend time with God. And what your friends are doing, you can't do anymore because you have conviction now and all these different things. So we say, or I can look at Saul and I can say, man, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but then I also have to look at my life. Where was the times where I was disobedient and I didn't fully do what God has called me to do? You know what I mean? Like, there's a call in your life. There's prophetic words and everything, and we take what we want from it. You know what I mean? We say we're going to be abstinence, we're going to be celibate. Celibate? Yeah. Until it comes up to the point that we find somebody that we like and we thinking that they'll be the person. And then next thing you know, you're breaking that promise. And then you say, "Hey, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore." And then all of a sudden, you make an excuse and you say, I'll just drink socially. I just won't. You know what I mean? But God requires all of you. And it's going to take a sacrifice. He loves you. He's not trying to tell you to do these things because it's going to damage you. It's going to make you better. But in order to get there are certain things that has to come off of you. There was a reason why he told him to take out everybody. It wasn't just, hey, you know what I mean? Like, just one day God woke up and said, hey, take out the Amalekites. There's a reason. There's a reason why you can't do the same things that other people are doing. God is trying to save you and preserve you. There's a call on your life. There's people attached to you. There's people attached to your blessing. And sometimes we don't get there because at the end of the day, we're worried about what other people might say. But I would encourage you to read this story for yourself and put yourself in those shoes, just like I have, and look over your life and see, where have I disobeyed God? Even partial disobedience is still disobedience. So, with that being said, I pray that this has blessed you. I pray that it makes you reflect on your own life.